What is up, bros? Josh here. In today's video, we're going over the currently work in progress Tier 10 USN Battleship the Ohio. In this video, I'll show you the stats of the ship, my captain builds, as well as the modules I use, and show you some gameplay and my thoughts on the Tier 10 Premium as it is right now. Just remember, it is currently work in progress. These stats are subject to change and could change before they do go live. Now, one of the first things I want to mention is how this ship will be obtained, and that is through the NTC program, which has just been renamed the Research Bureau. Now, if you are behind on the times a little bit in World of Warships, I'll put a link down below about the Research Bureau, the most recent information. Now, one of the things they haven't talked about is how much of a resource this will cost. Basically, the short of the Research Bureau is you will regrind lines and earn a currency, and then this ship will be bought with that currency, but they have not announced how many or how much of that currency the Ohio will cost. If there is ever an update, I will put a link down below and keep you guys up to date on that. So let's dive into the stats of the Ohio, and throughout this video, I will compare it to two main ships, and those ships are both the Montana, the Tier 10 Tech Tree ship, as well as the Georgia, the Tier 9 Premium ship that is available in the game right now. If people ask me what exactly is the Ohio and how does it play, well, it's a mix of both those ships. Imagine the gun layout and the armament of the Georgia, which is known for having double guns, which this has, as well as major secondaries on top of a Montana frame. That's going to be kind of the set off from this. Montana is going to be mainly focused about its main battery and having high AA, while the Georgia has double turrets with less guns, 3x2 instead of 4x3. But the caliber is bigger and it has higher secondaries. Now, the Ohio is the Montana frame with the Georgia kind of setup. However, it is the Tier 10, which has the 4x2. So again, those bigger armaments and more focused on secondaries, which the Montana really isn't. So it's pretty much just a much, I would say, a more fun, kind of aggressive secondary build-esque. We've seen this new pattern of USN battleships with the Massachusetts, Georgia, and now the Ohio. I feel like Wargaming could have easily made maybe a split off from the tech tree and done a secondary build. I think it's a little late now, obviously, since the Massachusetts and the Georgia are both premium ships, one tier 8, one tier 9. But I feel like this could have been an easy split and kind of a fun little version, because you give up maybe some main battery damage with the Montana just throwing out more shells, but you make up for it with some ships that are maybe a bit more agile, but a bit more fun because of the secondary range. However, the Ohio is going to have a lot of similar stats to the Montana because it's pretty much a Montana frame. Hit points are exactly the same, 96,300, so very, very similar, as well as the similar torpedo armament. However, main armament is one of the main differences. The Montana is going to have the 4x3, which is going to be pumping out 12 shells per salvo at 406 with a 30-second reload, and the Ohio is going to have 4x2, so only 8 compared to 12, but you do have a bit faster of a reload of 26 seconds. Now let's dive into the captain builds as well as the modules I'm using, because it will affect some of the values down below. And the build I'm running right here, this is kind of an awkward build, I would say. Maybe what I wouldn't kind of run it normally. I was kind of messing around with some stuff, but this is what I'm running on the Ohio, and this is what you'll see in the gameplay as well. This is exact captain is preventive maintenance. I did pick up Adrenaline Rush because I wanted to get a little bit more love on the secondaries. I did take basic survivability, and I did take AFT first because I want to get those secondaries out. Now on this, I did take fire prevention as well as concealment expert. I wanted to see how this goes. You could drop concealment expert maybe. I still am a fan of concealment expert on battleships, depending on which nation they are. So I did keep it on this, as well as going back and picking up expert loader. I could easily have picked up certain things like basic firing training. Could have easily picked up something like expert marksmanship. So I could have some points to throw around here, but this is the build I am running. And if we click over to, let's say, just the Montana, which I'm kind of comparing it to, we don't quite have the AA here, but basically the same thing on a lot of these. So basic survivability, we have a couple things that we took differently. He has the Halsey captain. But the Ohio, though, the buffs there are going to be affecting really not too much. You will get the AFT extension on the secondaries. The modules, though, however, are going to be pretty similar to what I would run on anything else. So we are taking main armament mod 1 as well as damage control system mod 1. We are taking the bonus to secondary modules. So what I normally would maybe run here would be like the more accurate shells. This one doesn't have that option, so I am taking the secondaries. I felt like the AA was okay, so I want that secondary range because they're quite fun. Damage control system on this as well. Concealment here. And then I am taking the artillery plotting room. So you could even bump this reload up a bit more. You could also the reload on the main, but I felt like it fired pretty quick, and I wanted to get these as accurate as possible. Again, you could make this a full secondary ship if you want, or a full AA ship if you want. I just went with this because it will affect the dispersion a little bit. Main armament though, 26 seconds on the reload, which I felt to be pretty fine, and 8 shells going out per that salvo. Pretty big shells though, and a decent, if you're kind of used to the trajectory of the, let's say the Montana, it's pretty normal because the shells are going to be kind of similar, although they are much bigger, so you do have some freedom to overpen or overmatch, I would say, a lot of ships, so you do have a bit more freedom when you're pumping out some shells. Even though you have less shells going out, it's the size of the shell that can really make up for having fewer of them. Main armament range is going to be 21.6 kilometers, but the secondaries are actually going to be quite nice at 10.8. Now I could even bump this up a little bit more with using the flag. However, whenever I test out ships, all I use is a detonation flag, that's it. So you could actually bump this out just a tad more if I show the right flag, 5% more, which could, I think, get you above 11k. So the secondaries are quite nice, but 10.8 is what you will see for the range. AA is pretty good, of 86 rating. You're pumping out a decent amount of damage, and you will definitely be knocking out some planes, as you'll see in this game where we do play against the CV. Maneuverability, 28 knots, full speed, turning circle, 950 meters, 18.6 seconds on the rudder shift. Let's just compare that to the Montana. So the Montana is going to be just a tad faster, but with that losing some turning circle, as well as the rudder shift is just a bit different, but still, you're going to be quite strong when it comes to the maximum speed, still at 28 knots. Now the Georgia is going to be a little different here. Georgia is going to be much faster. Not only do you have a higher end speed at the tier 9, you do also have that speed boost, which is very good on this ship. Again, we're using the same modules on the Georgia as we would, so that speed boost is very nice on a battleship. I really enjoy that. So not quite the speed demon that the Ohio is, or the Georgia is, but the Ohio is still doing pretty solid. And then a detectability of 14 kilometers by air. Let's dive into some gameplay. I'll show you what this thing can do, and actually just how much of a monster this thing can be dealt with if positioned correctly. So here we are in game with the Ohio, and I was actually kind of happy to have this game play out because it shows how strong this ship can be if positioned correctly. Now you could say that about every battleship, but something that has nice secondaries like this, as well as a decently fast reload and the ability to, you know, knock out some ships with some pretty caliber shells, the Ohio is definitely going to be a force to reckon with. Now, whenever I was playing this ship, I never felt weak at all. Now, the biggest comparison you can really make to this is, you know, the Montana. How does it compare against the Montana? Having less shells, do you notice it? You know, going from the Georgia, which is this fast secondary monster of a tier 9 ship, how does that compare against the Ohio and the Missouri? How does the Montana really compare against the Montana? You tend to notice having less shells. With the Ohio, I somehow didn't really notice I was missing something. Normally, it was, you know, you tend to get kind of like the Gneisenau effect, where inconsistency tends to be one of the main things with having double turret guns. The Ohio doesn't really have that problem. They're very, very accurate with not only using that module, so you could spec this out a little bit differently, but just having the ability to kind of just knock the teeth out of some ships. It's quite strong and felt very consistent. Normally, when you see these double turret ships, they tend to not be very consistent. So this one, seeing that and being a bit more consistent, you didn't really notice having the lack of those things, you know, having the lack of that basically. So this is a ship I really enjoyed, and was able to really pump out a lot of damage and really be able to do a lot of damage, even though being a tad, you know, weaker when it comes to just not having the shell output. Now the Montana is going to be able to punish some things more still. I would say the Montana is probably still better against cruisers when it comes to it, but it depends on which cruiser and which angle you're at. And what I mean by that is the Montana is just going to pump out more shells, and more shells means potential for more citadels. You can punish broadsides more, but the thing that this is going to kind of shine is kind of the Yamato-esque, if you will, shell type, where you're going to get that overmatch ability that the Montana wouldn't have in certain situations. You have almost 50 or right around 50 millimeters more pen when it comes to your shell type. So quite strong, quite noticeable in a lot of situations. And as you see right here, I want to get my secondaries into this game, but trying to find the right spot. Also, against CVs, I was able to actually be quite effective against AA. It is USN, so USN is known for their AA. There's a nice little almost 7K salvo on the Haragumo. So that's something right there that the Montana might have done better. But overall, this is a ship that is going to continue to do the job and do it quite well. Never, again, just want to say, never felt weak or never really felt that I was missing on shells that you kind of get. Again, something I'll just kind of refer to a bit more is it didn't have that Gneiss now feeling of, you know, of the inconsistency. But also, I could have gone with a few different things. So things I could have had on the ship is I could have even had a faster reload. I could have gone with the reload module. I could have gone with a few other things that would have affected both, you know, both the reload on the main battery and a few other effects. But I went with this. I felt like I wanted to be as consistent as possible with that. So there is a point of pumping out as many shells as possible, but I wanted the shells to really count. Yes, I could have maybe got a couple more seconds off my reload, but I would rather have the shells of that caliber be as effective as possible compared to maybe pumping out just a few more. So I kind of went with the quality over quantity thought process, and it seemed to have worked, and it seems to consistently work. This is a ship that I found, and I think with most tier 10 battleships, I found 100k to be quite easy to get, and that is what happens when a Gearing sits broadside in smoke when another ship has torps. So it's tier 10, they'll learn someday. But yeah, anyways, I felt like it was solid, and this is one ship that it's nice to have this extra little, what's the right way of saying it? It's nice to have this extra little tool that you don't really have or isn't really known. I guess it's kind of a newer thing, as I was talking about, this new wave of, and it seems like Wargaming's doing that a lot too, about adding new things into the game that are kind of this hybrid class. We're seeing stuff like the Haida, the IJN ship, which is kind of this in between a torpedo and a gunboat, and we also are seeing stuff like you know, the USN ships, which are kind of known for their secondaries and are known for their main battery in AA, but now we're seeing secondary ships. RIP, more sorry, Germans. The German ships continue to kind of get picked on a little bit here, but still a ship that's quite strong and is kind of taking the job of the German battleships. But yeah, I enjoyed this ship. I think that it may even get toned down. One of the main reasons that I think it might get toned down is that it just does such a good job at kind of taking away the job of a couple battleships. There's really not much of a downside. That's one thing I was kind of trying to talk about is you didn't feel like there was really a trade-off when it comes to this ship. Normally with the Montana, you're like, man, if only I could have secondaries, I could be a bit more, you know, there's certain things that a Republic could have been more effective, or a GK in certain scenarios could be more effective. This one, it's just, yeah, I could do what I'm doing in a Montana, but I feel like I just have more tools with this ship. So that's one thing I feel like this ship kind of has compared to the Monty. Even though the Monty could have a small, like a better impact when it comes to, let's say this is a perfect example right here. It could have a perfect example of what a Monty would be stronger as, where just having more shells on broadside. That would be something that we could maybe see a difference of. But again, the Ohio was pretty consistent. That was a nice big salvo, and it's something that you don't really see the downside. So things I could maybe see here is them toning down the reload a little bit for the Ohio, because you have big shells, you have a pretty maneuverable ship, you have good secondaries, you have a lot of stuff that is just good. It's just a good thing on the ship, and there really just isn't much of a downside. When it comes to these hybrid, again, almost a 28k, whatever that was, on the broadside GK, pretty comparable to what most likely would have happened in the Monty. But again, I have secondaries that I can get a little bit more aggressive in. There's just a lot of ships still, so I'm not getting right into secondary range. Yeah, this thing absolutely slaps, and it is something that will be quite nice if you enjoy, especially if you enjoy the Massachusetts, or you enjoy the Georgia. If you've gotten that, this is gonna make you feel just right at home, and an amazing ship to play with. A lot of fun, and but I feel like there's just that lack of, there's no downside to the ship, where you should kind of feel some kind of trade-off. So when it just feels like a straight up better version of another ship, it that's I think that's probably something that's too much. But you can see I'm in a very good spot to kind of get all of my tools into the fight. I'm getting towards, since I have a lot of life, I'm getting more towards the CV and where they're going. I'm getting all these broadsides, and it's kind of amazing, and I'm not really getting focused too much. Don't worry, I'll get focused a little bit more in just a little bit. But this is something I could see they maybe will affect. I like the USN Battleship having the ability to be more of a secondary spec. I enjoy that. I think it's very fun. It's this weird hybrid type of ship. But for something like this, I feel like we'll probably see I feel like we'll see maybe a small nerf to its reload. Again, just having no real downside is not a very good thing. So I could see a small change to the reload, maybe getting nerfed by just a couple seconds, nothing too crazy. And with that, you could be still very effective in this ship. But I feel like they need to make you choose a little bit. Do you want to be this overall solid ship, or do you maybe want to trade up and have kind of at least the same reload as a Monty? And if you want, it kind of makes you choose between the reload booster or the secondary. With right now, the reload or the accuracy. So that seems to be like where probably the right choices, making the person choose. Because right now, even at a 26-second reload, not even including Adrenaline Rush, it's a no-brainer to take the accuracy mod in the last slot. They should at least make you try and make a choice here instead of just making it a no-brain. So that's something I could easily see them change here. But you're going to start seeing the AA go off as well as some secondaries too. I actually get myself into a pretty good spot and really do a bunch of damage. But we are just kind of trying to stay alive. Our Richelieu could have kind of done the same thing. As you see right now, I'm kind of trying to hide a little bit because we are losing a lot of people in the bottom or the right side. Although we've pumped out almost 170k damage already, done a little bit of AA damage. This game is not out of the woods yet, because this Richelieu can't quite get away from these guys. Although I am staying dark just a bit. And there's the Missouri I'm looking for. So you'll see our secondaries pop off. And this is something that's just so nice to have, being able to just be a bit more aggressive. I think I take a pretty big hit here. I felt bad. Okay, that wasn't that one. I think there's another one I take where I thought I was covered and I didn't. So you're gonna see, although my AA is still pretty solid, it's still high tiers. So it's still tier 10 planes. So only so much we can do, and he does get the drop off there, but we will get ourselves into a nice little position that we can start knocking down some planes. We knocked down 5 of them already, and that is something that I noticed quite well, is you could be this nice little platform. So this is something too that if you wanted to, you could go into a full secondary build, which I find fun. And as you see right here, we probably would have bounced a lot more shells in the Monty when it comes against this Missouri. Being able to pump out this damage is very, very good. And just being able to pen that armor with the higher millimeter shells, it's very, very strong. But we're gonna pick on this Missouri a little bit. There we go, nice little citadel at that angle. And I think the Monty gets me a little bit. I know somebody smacks me here, but I know we kind of get picked on by CVs. I'm trying to go dark if I can, because that minnow is really kind of picking on me a little bit. We got the minnow, we got the Zal, and all this bad stuff. But hey, we're in Ohio, so we're trying to do what we can. And I was kind of hoping that those guys would push up a little bit more. And this guy juked the first shell. But also, we're gonna see a hack bombs making the battleship life feel awesome, and nothing you can really do here. Unavoidable damage, and there we go. Nice little chunk right there. But we are shooting down a ton of planes, so again, the AA is solid. But I like this. It shows that you can be such a nasty thing to deal with, and really a whole team kind of has to. You almost feel like a boss fight, and that's what I always call the. That's what I call the Massachusetts at tier 8. I call the Massachusetts, if you get top tier, almost like a boss fight, because so many things almost have to focus you. And the Ohio, I just felt strong. Either the only thing that this ship, really the only thing that was holding this ship back was when other ships or when teams just completely evaporated. If teams completely evaporated, you couldn't really do anything. Other than that, I felt super strong on this. Super, super, super strong. There's really like no downside. So Minotaur was so focused on killing the test ship that he got completely dev struck and smoke, so that's a feels good right there. And we're able to kind of live here. I'm actually dark right now, so the Ohio is going to live on. And again, I was kind of wondering why my secondaries weren't popping off there, but feels kind of bad. But we still pumped in a bunch of damage right there. And again, this is something that even the Buffalo could probably bounce a lot of shells when it comes to, let's say, something like the Monty. Again, we're probably down to a 20-something. I'll check it out as we fire right here. But whatever my reload is, like 22 seconds, 21 seconds, that's quite strong for a battleship with pumping out 457 millimeter shells. That's very, very, very strong. So 220k, a whole bunch of planes, a whole bunch of secondaries, 4 kills, no crackalack, and we'll take our four citadels as well. This is just and apparently I'm a employee of Wargaming now because everything's sailing broadside. So 235k in the Ohio. This thing's an absolute beast. I think we'll probably see a small little nerf to it because I feel like it's pretty strong. Again, this ship will be available through the NTC, and which is now the Research Bureau, and is something that will be earned over time. Again, those values of whatever that currency will be have not been released. So as soon as I know, you guys will know as well. So look for the dev blog there too to go over that kind of stuff. But a ship I really enjoy. If you like USN, if you like the Massachusetts, the Georgia, that style of play, the Ohio is the tier 10 equivalent of all that, and you'll have a lot of fun. But I feel like there's no real downside to this ship compared to the Montana. I feel like it's just better where it should be weak, it isn't, and it's better in other scenarios. So that's, to me, a bit of an alarm there. You can't just have kind of a straight up better version. I think you need some kind of trade-off, but that's my biggest drawback. But anyways, it is still work in progress, so stats are subject to change, and I imagine we'll see something before it goes live. But anyways, wanted to show you a quick little preview of this tier 10 USN battleship. Very fun, looking forward to it, and hope you guys are as well. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.